The pale dawn light spread slowly across the alien village. Mist curled over the rocky ground, soft and white, hiding the shadows of the night. In a small nest at the edge of the forest, a father alien opened his eyes. His skin was pale as snow, his long arms marked with faint silver lines that shone under the sun. He stretched slowly, expecting to hear the familiar soft chirps of his hatchlings, but the nest was silent. The father turned his head. The woven cradle of branches was empty. The moss where the hatchlings usually curled together was cold. He blinked twice, confused, and then leaned forward, his heart starting to beat faster. They were gone. The albino alien stood tall now, his sharp backplates rising with panic. He sniffed the air, searching for their scent. Nothing. He touched the ground, trying to feel the faint warmth that small bodies always left behind. The nest was too cold, too empty. He let out a low growl that echoed through the forest edge. His neighbors looked up from their huts. One old alien asked quietly, "Where are your young ones?" The father did not answer. His voice was caught in his throat. He stepped away from the nest and began searching the dirt for signs. He found small claw marks where the hatchlings had played the day before. But now there were other marks, scattered impressions in the soil that were longer, thinner. Not from hatchlings, not from his kind. Something strange had passed here. The father's panic grew. He moved through the trees, his pale form slipping in and out of the mist. Every step he searched for traces. The hatchlings were too young to fly, too young to wander far. They would not have left on their own. Whispers followed him as he searched. "Perhaps the humans took them," one villager muttered. "Humans steal what they do not understand." The father clenched his jaw. Humans, the strange settlers who lived beyond the river, building with wood and stone. He had seen them from a distance, walking upright, fragile but clever. Could they have taken his children? And if so, for what purpose? The thought burned inside him. Hours passed. He searched near the caves, under the roots of trees, even along the edge of the cliffs. But the forest only gave silence. Birds circled above. The wind carried no cry of his hatchlings. By the time the sun reached high, the father returned to the nest, his chest heavy. He sat beside the empty cradle, staring at the spot where they had once slept. He remembered their tiny claws tugging at his hand. He remembered their eyes bright as dawn, looking up at him with trust. Now there was nothing. The villagers gathered around him. Some offered comfort. Others whispered of omens. One voice cut through the air. "The humans must be guilty."
"Who else would dare?"
The father did not speak, but his fist tightened. In his mind, questions roared louder than the wind. If humans had taken them, why? To harm them? To sell them? To study them like strange animals? He rose slowly, his tall form trembling with rage and fear. His pale eyes glowed with a cold fire. "I will find them," he said at last. His voice was low, but every ear caught it. The villagers stepped back. They knew the strength of a father searching for his blood. That night, as the moon rose, the albino alien stood alone by the forest edge. Shadows stretched long. The world was quiet, almost too quiet. He thought of his hatchlings again. Small, helpless, waiting for him somewhere in the dark. He swore on the stars above he would not rest until they were safe. But deep in the stillness, a darker thought whispered. What if he was already too late? The mist thickened around him, curling like ghosts. The forest held its secrets. And somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the river, in a place he had not yet dared to search, tiny hearts beat softly. Hidden from him, the vanishing had begun. Word count by 705 words. The forest was silent, but silence often hides secrets. The albino alien father stepped carefully along the dirt path, his pale skin almost glowing in the weak morning light. His eyes, sharp and restless, searched every shadow. His hatchlings had been gone for many days now, yet his determination burned brighter with each step. This time he was not just searching blindly. He had found something. Near the edge of the nest, faint lines had appeared in the soil, traces too small for adult feet, yet too steady to belong to hatchlings. The father crouched low, running his clawed hand over the ground. The prints were narrow, long, and deep. His mind clicked with recognition. Human prints. He froze, the air around him heavy. His people had whispered it, but he had not wanted to believe. Now the evidence lay beneath his hands. His heart pounded. If humans had taken his children, what could it mean? He followed the trail. The footprints led into the woods, weaving between trees, skipping across stones, vanishing, and then appearing again in softer soil. The alien's senses sharpened. His ears twitched, catching every rustle, every bird call, every break in the silence. He remembered the humans he had seen from afar. They were small, fragile creatures, with strange smooth skin and clumsy movements. Yet they were clever, building fires, making weapons, cutting trees. What would such beings want with alien hatchlings? The thought made his chest tighten. He pressed on. The trail twisted near a stream where shallow water washed away most of the prints. But just beyond, pressed into the mud, he saw it. A half-print, sharp and fresh. His anger deepened. They had come this way not long ago. The father's breath grew heavy. His imagination tormented him with images. His hatchlings trapped in wooden cages crying for him in the dark. He shook his head violently, refusing to believe it. Still, the fear crawled in his veins. Then, something else caught his eye. Near a fallen tree hidden under a pile of leaves, he found scraps of food, roots, wild berries, and something unusual, crumbs of baked bread. His eyes narrowed. Aliens did not eat bread, only humans did. And there, lying beside the crumbs, was something even more shocking. A tiny strip of cloth, soft and torn, with bright stitching. His claws lifted it slowly. He had never seen such colors before. Blue and white thread woven together in simple patterns. The father stared at it. This was no hunting sign, no wild accident. This was care. Someone had been feeding his hatchlings. The discovery unsettled him. If the humans had stolen the hatchlings for harm, why feed them? Why leave them warm food? Why tuck them under cloth? The questions rattled inside him louder than before. Night began to fall. The forest turned darker, shadows swallowing the trees one by one. The father lit no fire. His eyes could see through gloom, and his heart did not allow rest. He crouched by the stream, the cloth still in his hand, and thought of his children's faces. He remembered their tiny voices, their fragile warmth. Where were they now? Were they safe? Or was this a trick, a trap set to lure him? The wind carried the faint smell of smoke. Human smoke. His back stiffened and his head turned sharply toward the scent. Somewhere beyond the trees, humans sat around their fires, laughing, eating, living their lives while his heart bled with worry. For a moment, he almost charged forward. He almost stormed into their camp, ready to tear it apart until he found what was his. But reason stopped him. He had no proof beyond prints and scraps. If he attacked now, his people would blame him for starting a war. He clenched his fists, trembling with frustration. Then, in the stillness, a sound reached him. Faint, gentle, like a memory. A chirp. His head whipped toward it, eyes wide. The sound was soft, almost lost in the rustling leaves, but his heart knew it. The cry of a hatchling. He stood frozen, breath caught in his throat. It had come from deeper in the woods. But when he rushed forward, the sound vanished. The forest swallowed it whole as if mocking him. Still, it was enough. Enough to keep his hope alive, enough to keep him moving. The father swore silently. He would not stop, not tonight, not ever. The humans thought they could hide. But the forest could not protect them forever. Somewhere out there, his hatchlings were alive. And he would tear apart the earth itself to find them. The strange clues had given him only questions, but in those questions burned the promise of answers, and the closer he came, the darker the truth seemed to be. The night was heavy with mist. The albino alien father moved through the shadows like a ghost, his pale form blending with the silver light of the moon. He had followed the strange clues for days, footprints, crumbs, scraps of cloth, and each step had pulled him closer to a truth he could hardly imagine. Now, he stood at the edge of the human village. Fires burned low in small huts made of wood and stone. The air smelled of smoke, bread, and animals. Strange voices rose and fell, laughter mixing with the crackle of fire. To the alien's ears it was all harsh, sharp, and foreign. His people said humans were greedy thieves, clever but untrustworthy. And yet, his hatchling's trail had led here. He crouched low, his wide eyes scanning every shadow. He did not dare step into the open. His kind were taller, stronger, more fearsome than humans. If they saw him now, they would panic. They would fight. And he had no desire to shed blood, not yet. His nose twitched. A faint scent carried on the breeze, familiar. It was them. His hatchlings. The father's heart thumped hard in his chest. He followed the scent past the huts, moving silently, his claws barely brushing the dirt. At the far end of the village stood an old wooden barn, weathered and crooked, its doors half open. The smell grew stronger, and then he heard it. Soft chirps. Faint but clear. The cries of his hatchlings. He froze in the shadows, every nerve alive. Slowly, carefully, he peered through a crack in the barn wall. What he saw made him still as stone. There, on a bed of hay, lay his missing hatchlings. Their pale bodies curled in a warm pile, their tiny claws twitching in sleep. They were safe. They were alive. Relief swept through him like a flood, but it did not last long, for he saw something more. Beside them sat a human girl. She was small, younger than most of the villagers he had glimpsed. Her dark hair was messy, her clothes worn and patched. Yet her face held no fear. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her hands gently resting near the hatchlings. She hummed softly, a tune so simple it was almost like a lullaby. The hatchlings responded to her voice, chirping in their sleep, pressing closer to her warmth. One of them curled against her arm as if she were family. The father's chest tightened. His mind roared with confusion. Why? Why would a human girl be here guarding his children? Why were they not afraid of her? Why did they cling to her as if she belonged to them? He leaned closer, his breath sharp in his throat. The girl lifted her head suddenly, as if sensing the weight of his gaze. Her eyes, wide and dark, looked straight toward the crack in the wall. For a moment, alien and human stared at each other through the shadows. She did not scream. She did not run. Instead, she whispered, her voice trembling but gentle. "I know you're there." The father stiffened. The girl turned back to the hatchlings, stroking one of their small heads. "Don't be angry." They were cold. They were hungry. "I only wanted to help." Her words struck him deeper than any blade. He watched her pull a torn blanket tighter over the hatchlings. He saw the half-empty bowl of roots and berries beside her. He noticed the small fire she had made, carefully shielded so the smoke would not choke them. This was no thief. No monster. This was... Karis the father's claws dug into the wood of the barn. His instincts screamed to burst inside, to grab his children, to flee. Yet something stronger held him still. The girl leaned down, whispering softly to the hatchlings. "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe until your father comes." His breath caught. His hands trembled. She knew. Somehow she had known all along that he would come. The silence between them stretched long. The alien father's eyes burned with questions he could not ask. Who was this girl? Why would she risk angering her own people to protect what was not hers? The hatchlings stirred again, their chirps soft and happy. One nuzzled against the girl's cheek and she smiled faintly, though her eyes shone with loneliness. The father's chest ached. For the first time since the vanishing, his fear turned into something else, confusion, wonder, even guilt. He had imagined humans as cruel thieves, but now he stood at the edge of a truth far stranger. The barn was quiet again, filled with the sound of breathing, small, fragile, peaceful. The father stepped back into the shadows. His heart torn in two, he had found his hatchlings. But he had also found something he did not expect. A human girl who had cared for them as if they were her own, and nothing would ever be the same again. The barn was silent except for the soft chirps of the hatchlings. The alien father stood in the doorway now, his tall frame blocking the pale moonlight. His white skin gleamed faintly, his long arms tense at his sides. The girl looked up, her dark eyes wide, but still she did not scream. For a long moment neither moved. The hatchlings stirred at the change in the air. One lifted its tiny head and chirped at the father, as if recognizing him. The sound tore at his chest. He wanted to rush forward, scoop them into his arms, and never let them go. But his gaze stayed locked on the girl. She was just a child, small, fragile. Yet she sat straight, her back stiff, as if guarding them. Her hands trembled, but she did not pull away from the hatchlings. The father's voice rumbled low, deep as thunder. "Why?" The girl swallowed, her lips pale, but her answer came steady. "They were alone. I found them in the forest, cold, hungry. They would have died." The father's jaw tightened. His people's whispers of human cruelty clashed with the sight before him. His hatchlings were alive, safe. And it was this girl, this human, who had kept them so. He took a slow step inside. The wooden floor creaked under his weight. The hatchlings chirped again, torn between the warmth of the girl and the pull of their father. The girl's voice dropped to a whisper. "Please don't take them away yet. They need rest. I gave them food, but they are still weak." His claws curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at him. "They are yours, take them, run." But another part of him, quieter and heavier, forced him to pause. His eyes scanned the room, the fire she had built, the scraps of bread and roots, the worn blanket wrapped around his children. This was not a prison. It was a shelter. The father's pale eyes narrowed. You fed them. You cared for them. Why? The girl's head lowered. For a moment she said nothing. Then softly she whispered, because I know what it feels like to be alone. Her voice trembled, but the words carried truth. She brushed her hand over the blanket. My family. They are gone. No one takes care of me. I live here in the barn. Sometimes people give me scraps, but most days, I have nothing. Her eyes lifted to his. When I saw them so small, so lost, I couldn't walk away. I thought maybe if I helped them, it would be like I wasn't so alone anymore. The father felt a strange weight press into his chest. He had expected lies, excuses, or fear. Instead, he found honesty. The girl's loneliness was as sharp as his own. The hatchlings chirped again, crawling toward him now. They reached for his hands, their tiny claws scratching at his arms, their voices filled with joy. His heart swelled at their touch. Yet, when he tried to pull them close, they turned their heads back to the girl, chirping sadly as if afraid to be parted from her. The father froze. His own children wanted her. The girl's eyes glistened. She whispered quickly as if afraid he might strike her. I never meant to steal them. I only wanted to help. Please believe me. His breath came heavy. He was torn between fury and gratitude, between instinct and reason. His people would never understand this. To them, humans were nothing but trouble. If he told them the truth, they would call her a thief, a liar, and demand her punishment. But standing here, staring into her trembling face, he saw something his people had missed. This human child had shown kindness when even his own tribe had failed to find his hatchlings. The father took another step closer. His towering form cast a shadow over her. She did not shrink away. Instead, she placed one hand gently on the smallest hatchling, as if shielding it with her fragile body. His claws trembled in the air. For a heartbeat, he imagined snatching them all and leaving her behind. But another thought stopped him cold. Would his hatchlings cry for her? Would they feel betrayed? The barn filled with silence again, heavy and sharp. The girl's breathing was fast, but her eyes stayed fixed on his. Finally, his voice came low, almost a growl. You are brave. For a human. The girl blinked, startled, but said nothing. He looked down at his hatchlings, then back at her. His heart burned with conflict. For the first time, he realized the choice before him was greater than just rescue. It was trust. It was change. And in that quiet barn, with the stars watching above, the alien father knew. The next step he took would alter everything. The barn grew quiet again after the alien father's heavy words. The hatchlings chirped softly, curling between him and the girl, torn between two worlds. Their tiny bodies pressed against her arms, yet their bright eyes shone when they looked at him. The father knelt slowly, his tall frame folding like a great shadow. His pale skin caught the glow of the fire as he reached toward his children. They clambered onto his arms, chirping with joy, their claws scratching at his hands. Relief surged through him, but it came with something unexpected. They kept turning back toward the girl, as if afraid he might leave her behind. The girl lowered her gaze, her small fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. They trust me, she whispered. I didn't plan it, it just happened. The father's jaw tightened. His kind believed humans were selfish creatures. Yet here was proof that belief was broken. His hatchlings trusted her as much as they trusted him. He studied the girl more closely now. Her cheeks were hollow, her clothes patched and torn. She had no shoes, only dirty cloth wrapped around her feet. She was thin, too thin for her age. And her eyes, though brave, carried the weight of loneliness. Where are your parents? His voice rumbled low, but softer than before. The girl hesitated. She pulled the blanket tighter over the hatchlings as though it gave her courage. They're gone. The fever took them. No one wanted me after that. I stay here in the barn because it's warm and the animals don't mind me. Her voice cracked, though she tried to hide it. Some people in the village throw me scraps. Most don't even look at me. I thought maybe I'd vanish too, like I never existed. The father's pale eyes flickered with something strange. Pity. He had known loss, but never abandonment. Among his people, no hatchling was left alone. The tribe cared for its own. Yet here was a human child living with nothing, yet still finding kindness in her heart. The hatchlings chirped and nuzzled against her chest. One licked her cheek with a soft, wet sound. She laughed faintly, brushing it away. See, they don't mind me. They make me feel like I belong. The father's chest ached. His hatchlings had survived because of her. Without her hands, her scraps of food, her courage to face the cold nights, they would have perished. And they loved her. He could see it in the way their small eyes followed her, the way their voices softened when she sang. The girl lifted her head, meeting his gaze. I never wanted to keep them from you. I only wanted to give them a chance. I know what it feels like to be alone, and I couldn't let them suffer that. Her words sank deep into him. He had expected excuses or fear, but instead she spoke truth, plain and raw. For the first time, the father's claws relaxed. He sat fully on the barn floor, his tall form folding into the hay. The hatchlings crawled between him and the girl, chirping happily as if urging them closer. The firelight danced across the barn, warming the air. The girl reached into a small basket, pulling out the last of her food, a few berries, a piece of stale bread. She broke it carefully, offering it to the hatchlings. They chirped excitedly, nibbling, their tiny mouths full of joy. The father watched in silence. His chest swelled with something unfamiliar, gratitude. This fragile human child, who had nothing of her own, had given everything she could to his children. At last he spoke again, his voice softer than the wind. You are different, the girl blinked, surprised. Different? Yes. His pale eyes glowed faintly. My people fear humans. They say you are greedy, dangerous, but you are not like them. You are one of us. The girl's lips parted in shock. She looked at him, then at the hatchlings, who chirped happily between them. For the first time in many moons, her eyes filled not with loneliness, but with hope. The bond had been sealed not only between hatchlings and girl, but between alien and human. The father knew then that the story of this night would not stay hidden. If his people discovered the truth, they would call her a thief. If her people found out, they might call him a monster. Yet in this barn, under the quiet watch of the stars, none of that mattered. What mattered was simple. His hatchlings were alive, and they had chosen her as family too. And no matter what storm came after this night, he could not forget the bond he had seen with his own eyes. The dawn came cold and gray. The mist rose again, curling over the alien village like ghostly fingers. Word had already spread. The hatchlings were found. The father had returned with them. But the story did not end there, because the whispers carried another name. The human girl. The tribe gathered in the wide circle at the village's heart. Tall figures with pale skin and sharp eyes, their backs lined with faint silver ridges. They stood silent, waiting for answers. The hatchlings chirped in their father's arms, wriggling as if restless. The girl walked behind him, small and barefoot, her face pale but her chin held high. The villagers stared at her with suspicion. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She took them. She hid them. She is a thief. The father stood in the center, his tall frame towering above all. His jaw was set tight. His pale eyes burned with quiet fire. He had feared this moment from the start. His people would not see the truth. They would see only what they wanted, their prejudice reflected in her fragile form. An elder stepped forward. His voice was sharp, like stone breaking. Albion, he said, calling the father by name. You have brought your children back. But why does this human stand at your side? Why do your hatchlings cling to her? The father's arms tightened around his children. They chirped and reached toward the girl as if begging not to be parted from her. The crowd gasped at the sight. She must answer, the elder demanded. Why did you steal what was not yours, human? The girl's lips trembled, but she did not run. She stepped forward, her small voice rising against the sea of towering aliens. I didn't steal them, she said firmly. I found them. They were lost, hungry, and cold. I fed them. I kept them warm. I only wanted them to live. Her words rang simple and clear, but the crowd did not soften. The murmurs grew louder, sharper, turning into anger. She lies. She kept them for herself. She will bring ruin. The father felt the weight pressing down on him from all sides. His people demanded punishment. His heart demanded gratitude. His hatchlings chirped in distress, sensing the tension. Their tiny claws scratched at his chest, their eyes darting back to the girl. The elder's gaze hardened. Albion, you know the law. If a human takes from us, the price is death. Hand her over. The father's heart thundered. His claws curled tight. Every instinct told him to protect his children. But now protecting them meant protecting her too. For they had chosen her as family. He looked down at the girl. She stood small, fragile, and utterly alone before his tribe. Yet there was no fear in her eyes, only sadness and a quiet courage that shamed even him. She whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "It's all right. If they want me gone, I'll go. Just don't let them hurt the hatchlings." Her words tore through him. The father's chest burned. His mind raced. If he defied the tribe, he risked exile, shame, maybe worse. If he obeyed, he would betray his children who chirped and reached for her with desperate cries. The silence stretched. All eyes were on him. Finally, his voice broke the air, low but steady. "No." The crowd stiffened. "No," he repeated louder this time, his pale eyes flashing. He stepped closer to the girl, wrapping one great arm protectively around her shoulders. "She is no thief. She saved them when we could not. Without her, they would be dead." Gasps rippled through the tribe. The elder's face darkened. "Albion, you defy the law." "I uphold something greater," the father growled. His voice shook the air. "The truth. She is their protector. She is their family now." The hatchlings chirped loudly, almost in agreement, pressing themselves between the girl and their father. The sight silenced the murmurs. For a moment, even the elder faltered. The father's words echoed through the circle. "I will not hand her over. If you call her enemy, then I stand as her shield. If you call her thief, then I call her savior. The bond is made. Break it and you break me too." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some whispered still, but others fell silent, watching the hatchlings cling to both alien and human. The truth was plain, even if their pride would not let them admit it. The elder's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with fury, but his voice came heavy with warning. "You have chosen, Albion. Do not forget what this choice will cost you." The father did not waver. He looked down at the girl, who stared up at him with wide, astonished eyes. He saw the flicker of hope there, the fragile light she had not felt in years. And in that moment he knew the decision was final. He had chosen not just for himself, not just for his hatchlings, but for her. The village square had never been so silent. The elder's warning still hung in the cold air, heavy like a storm cloud. The albino alien father stood tall, the human girl beside him, the hatchlings nestled between them. Every eye in the tribe watched, waiting for his next words, waiting to see if he would bow or break. The father's chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. He could feel the weight of tradition pressing against him. Generations of law demanded the girl's punishment. But the warmth of his hatchlings, the desperate way they clung to her, reminded him of something stronger than law. Family. The girl's small hand brushed against the hatchlings' heads, calming them. She looked up at the towering father, her eyes wide and uncertain. She whispered, "They'll never accept me. You don't have to fight for me." But he shook his head, his pale eyes blazing. "They must. Because you fought for us." Gasps broke from the crowd. The elder stepped forward, his silver-lined skin gleaming. His voice thundered, "Albion, you shame us. To place a human above your own kind? To break the law of the brood?" The father raised his head high. His voice, low and heavy, carried across the circle. "I break no law. I honor a truth greater than law. She saved them when none of us could. She is their protector. She is their family." The hatchlings chirped loudly, almost as if answering his words. One wriggled from his arms, climbing onto the girl's shoulder, pressing against her cheek. The sight was undeniable. The bond was real. The villagers whispered louder now. Some with anger, some with awe, a few even with hesitation, as though something deep inside them stirred with doubt. The elder's eyes narrowed. "And what will you do, Albion? Will you make her one of us? Will you bring a human into the brood? This child of dirt and weakness? You would dishonor our bloodline." The father stepped forward, his shadow falling over the elder. His voice rose, powerful as thunder rolling across mountains. "Yes, I will." The silence that followed was so sharp it felt like the air itself had cracked. He lifted his hatchlings, holding them high so all could see. His words rang with a vow no one could ignore. "This girl is now part of my brood. My hatchlings have chosen her, and so I choose her too. From this day she is under my protection, my blood and spirit, my family and truth. Whoever harms her, harms me." The tribe erupted into cries, shock, anger, disbelief. Some shouted for punishment, others demanded silence. The elder's face twisted with fury, his voice breaking through the chaos. You will destroy us. You invite ruin upon our people. But the father stood unmoved, towering and steady. He placed one clawed hand gently on the girl's shoulder, his eyes never leaving the crowd. No, she will not destroy us. She will remind us what we have forgotten. The girl's small body trembled under his hand, but her eyes filled with tears. Tears not of fear, but of belonging. For the first time in years, she was not alone. The hatchlings chirped louder, wrapping around both of them as if sealing the bond. The crowd could not deny what they saw. The elder tried again, his voice sharp with desperation. You risk everything for her. What will the galaxy say when they hear an alien has claimed a human child as his own? The father's eyes glowed cold and steady. His answer cut through the air like a blade. Then let the galaxy hear. Let them know that family is not bound by skin or law or blood. Let them know that my brood chose love over fear. The words struck like fire. Even those who doubted fell into silence. The girl pressed her face against the hatchlings, whispering softly, I'm not alone anymore. Her small voice carried further than she knew. The father tightened his arm around her. He had made his choice, and there was no turning back. He would face exile, anger, even war if he had to, but never betrayal of the bond that had been formed. That night, the stars above the village burned brighter than ever, as though bearing witness to what had been declared. A decision that shook not only the tribe, but would echo far beyond their world. The albino alien had chosen. A human girl had been claimed as brood, and the galaxy itself would never be the same again.